Sony says 78% of full-game PlayStation sales were digital during fiscal 2025, which sounds like a clean death certificate for discs. However, the same report lists 317.9 million full-game units, meaning the remaining 22% implies roughly 70 million non-digital purchases. Meanwhile, physical software revenue rose from about 121.2 billion yen to 125.1 billion yen. Those numbers create the real fight, preserving games ownership and creative access versus Sony's argument that corporate efficiency requires one controlled format. By the end, we will decide whether this policy protects PlayStation's future or simply gives Sony more power over it. 13 years ago, Sony mocked Microsoft with a 21-second tutorial showing two executives passing a PlayStation 4 disc between them. Back then, Xbox proposed restrictions around used games and sharing, while Sony turned basic ownership into a public relations weapon. History now looks less like a victory and more like a company waiting until the market became safe enough to copy the idea. Apparently, Sony studied Microsoft's rejected homework, removed the warning label, and submitted it with better lighting. Before we unpack the announcement, hit like if digital convenience should remain a choice rather than become the only permitted format. Also subscribe, because this channel checks the numbers before roasting the corporation, and Sony's own evidence creates a messier story than its press release admits. First, remove the fake version of the controversy, because exaggeration only gives Sony an easy escape. Existing PlayStation discs are not scheduled to stop working in January 2028. Likewise, games released before that date are unaffected. Importantly, Sony has not confirmed whether the PlayStation 6 will include a disc drive. What Sony confirmed is that physical disc production for all new PlayStation games will end starting in January 2028. Afterwards, new releases will use digital formats only. Consequently, Sony has not killed the collection already sitting on your shelf. It has stopped your future shelf from growing. Put simply, your old games survive, but Sony cancelled their children. Officially, the company says consumer preferences and the wider entertainment business are shifting away from discs. Honestly, evidence supports that explanation because downloads dominate full game sales. During fiscal 2025, 78% of PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 full game units were digital. Quarterly results looked even harsher for physical media, with the digital ratio reaching 85% during the final quarter. Clearly, most customers prefer quick purchases, preloads, and easy switching. Nobody needs to pretend discs are winning the sales race to question Sony's response. Majority preference proves digital is popular. It does not prove every remaining buyer asked for the alternative to disappear. Supposedly, choosing digital 8 times means Sony can remove the other two choices forever. More importantly, the total sales figure reveals that the minority remains substantial. Across the fiscal year, Sony reported 317.9 million full-game software units. Applying the rounded ratio leaves about 70 million units outside digital transactions. Crucially, that number is an inference from Sony's published totals, not a separate company claim of 70 million physical sales. Still, calling disc buyers non-existent is ridiculous. Only 70 million purchases, apparently, which is practically 3 collectors hiding inside a GameStop. Physical software revenue also increased from roughly 121.2 billion yen to 125.1 billion yen. Specifically, Sony includes first-party discs, third-party royalties, and physical software bundled with hardware. Therefore, the figure is not a simple count of boxed games sold directly to customers. Nevertheless, that category grew while Sony prepared its expiration date. Somehow, the dying format earned more money, and management responded by measuring the coffin. Then comes the strongest evidence supporting Sony, and critics should not dodge it. Circana analyst Matt Piscatella reported that only 7 PlayStation games exceeded 100,000 physical sales in the United States during 2026 through July. Just 2 PlayStation games passed 10,000 physical units during the week ending July 11th. Notably, those numbers cover every tracked PlayStation platform, publisher and game, but only within the United States. They are not worldwide totals, and presenting them as global evidence would be dishonest. Undeniably, American physical demand has fallen sharply, creating real manufacturing, shipping inventory and retail costs. Publishers supporting 2 formats must forecast demand, print stock, move boxes, and absorb unsold copies. Corporate survival can require cutting waste, especially for small releases with weak retail demand. Yet survival is a dramatic word for a company reporting hundreds of millions of game sales and 125 million monthly active users. Efficiency is the stronger case, because digital distribution removes production costs and simplifies delivery. Alternatives also existed: limited print runs, regional releases, pre-order-based manufacturing, premium physical editions, or specialist partners. Instead, Sony chose the solution that removes the competing format for every future release. Basically, the patient was losing weight, so Sony sold the hospital. Digital-only distribution changes more than packaging because it changes who controls the checkout. Disc buyers can compare retailers, buy used copies, borrow, trade, or resell. Download buyers on PlayStation usually enter Sony's controlled ecosystem, even when a retailer sells the initial code. Once redeemed, that code generally cannot be sold, loaned, gifted, or traded towards another purchase. Codes and gift cards cannot reproduce a DC's second life. Eliminating physical releases therefore weakens outside price competition and strengthens Sony's control over future transactions. Certainly, digital games can become cheaper than boxed copies. Conversely, customers must accept the prices, account rules, regional limits, and access systems available within that network. Sharing now becomes simple. Give your friend your account, your password, and custody of your entire digital life. Creative freedom also enters the argument through preservation, access, and publishing flexibility. Smaller studios sometimes use physical editions to reach collectors, recover attention after launch, or keep niche projects circulating beyond a storefront campaign. Collectors preserve unusual releases, libraries archive cultural work, and second-hand shops introduce old games to new audiences. Removing discs does not stop developers from creating games, but it narrows how those works can survive, move, and be discovered. Artistic creativity versus corporate survival therefore needs an honest correction. Sony is not choosing whether artists may create. It is choosing whether their future PlayStation work may exist outside Sony's digital channel. That is preservation and distribution versus corporate control, not starving artists versus bankruptcy. Beyond individual titles, one market estimate valued the global second-hand gaming business at about $7.2 billion in 2025. Broadly, that estimate includes used games, consoles, accessories, and peripherals, not PlayStation software alone. Hence, nobody should describe it as a $7.2 billion PlayStation disc market. Even so, resale brings late customers into franchises and helps fund new purchases. From Sony's perspective, the flaw in an old disc is obvious. Sony already received money once. Every resale, loan, or family handoff creates consumer value without guaranteeing another platform payment. Public opposition has also become large enough to measure, although signatures do not equal lost sales. When checked on July 28, the Don't Kill the Disc petition displayed roughly 347,000 verified signatures, with the live total still changing. Supporters ask Sony to preserve physical media aside downloads, not abolish digital distribution. Currently, no official reversal, compromise, or negotiation has been announced. Calling the group a minority is mathematically fair beside PlayStation's enormous audience, but dismissing hundreds of thousands of people as irrelevant is convenient. Ironically, Sony finally created a successful live service community, except it exists mainly to complain about Sony. Next comes the fan-organized PlayStation Blackout announced by preservation group Does It Play. Organizers scheduled it from August 23rd at 7 in the evening until August 30th at the same local time. Participants are asked to avoid logins, play sessions, and purchases across Sony platforms for 7 days. Because the protest has not happened, nobody can honestly claim success, major participation, or measurable financial damage. Perhaps thousands join, millions notice, or the revolution becomes 12 photographs of unplugged consoles and one furious hashtag. For 1 week, the PlayStation 5 may receive its most demanding exclusive, the power off screen. Unfortunately, a blackout without reduced spending can become a scheduled vacation. Filings reported 125 million monthly active PlayStation users at the end of March 2026. Against that scale, a small 7-day activity drop could disappear within normal changes caused by regions, schedules, outages, and releases. Forum reaction is already divided, with some players discussing subscription cancellations, while others mock the plan or promise to keep playing. Merely using offline games does not create clear financial pressure. Skipping purchases, downloadable content, subscriptions, and accessories sends a stronger business signal, although no result is guaranteed. Gamers also follow a predictable revolutionary cycle: announce war, post a slogan, then pre-order the deluxe edition because the costume sparkles. Realistically, Sony is not frightened by your console taking a nap. It notices when your credit card stops breathing. Finally, the ownership concern becomes harder to dismiss when Sony's older stores enter the discussion. Starting in selected markets during 2026, Sony will close new purchases through the PlayStation 3 store. Additional closures will follow before PlayStation 3 and Vita stores stop new sales in most remaining countries during July 2027. Previously purchased content should remain downloadable for what Sony calls the foreseeable future. Foreseeable sounds comforting, but it is not a permanent date, lifetime contract, or complete preservation plan. Hideo Kojima compared streaming access to turning on a tap connected to data stored on somebody else's server. His warning focused on streaming, while he acknowledged that downloaded games can remain on local hardware. Downloads are therefore safer than pure streaming, and disks are imperfect because patches, incomplete builds, online requirements, and dead servers can limit them. Nevertheless, physical media can provide offline installation, lending, resale collecting, and another access route when a storefront disappears. Ultimately, Sony's commercial logic is understandable. Digitally, sales dominate, physical demand is shrinking, manufacturing costs exist, and supporting two formats requires resources. Equally, ending disks gives Sony greater control over pricing channels, accounts, resale, sharing, preservation, and future access. A balanced conclusion does not call downloads evil or pretend every disk guarantees permanent ownership. Rather, the evidence shows a popular convenience being converted into an exclusive system that benefits the platform holder most. Maybe the petition stalls, the blackout fails, and most customers continue buying exactly as before. Regardless, customer acceptance would not transform fewer choices into a consumer benefit. Remember, no confirmed PlayStation 6 disc specification exists, and canceling PlayStation Plus cannot be promised to force a reversal. Definitely, Sony is following a real digital trend, but corporate survival does not require eliminating every physical option. Verdict: this plan protects efficiency, not creativity, while giving players fewer choices and Sony more control.